incorporate that fully. So I want to check that out and see what that's like too. And then other than that, I got a Black Ops, so I'll probably be playing that, and that's cross-gen, so I can play with anybody. So
that's awesome. I guess I'm gonna have to buy it on the computer then, so that we can all finally play video games together.
Hey, that's awesome. At least that's cross-platform. So at least we didn't lose you until you finally build your PC. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Which PlayStation had Discord?
I wish all the consoles do. Yeah. I don't know why they just don't have the app like everybody else. You can get it on your phone, like on any browser. Like I don't understand why you can't just do unless like it's like a trademark or like Discord and like Sony or Microsoft can't come into like a mutual agreement or like or maybe they're just trying to force you to use their in built-in party systems. You know, because otherwise,
yeah, they're trying to force you to use their proprietary system. Because I'm sure Discord would probably charge them a grip of money to have it put on their stores or things like that, which I understand on Discord's part. They have to build the app for the console.
Well, yeah, I think it would just make their in-game obsolete, just like Escape from Tarkov was talking about with they were going to put in this in-game, they were wanting to put in this huge in-game comm system where, you know, you come in with like a SIPR comm, encrypted like comm device, and if someone kills you, and you don't wipe your comms, they can get your comms and like hear your radios in game. And then he was like, well, all you fuckers are just gonna use Discord anyways, so it's not gonna matter, so we're not gonna put it in. But like, that
would have been sick.
You know, it would have been a sick idea, but everybody's gonna use Discord, just like Squad, right? No one goes in Squad and just uses the in-game system purely, right? Even if we do use it, we're still in Discord, you know. So I think that's got to be I think that's a huge hang up for them, you know. Because PC doesn't have they have in-game VoIP and stuff, but they don't have a general like in-game system, you know. It's not like a Steam party system that you can talk through, you know, unless you do like calls.
Right. That's one of the things that's revolutionized. Like that's one of the revolutionizing things about Discord was it essentially fixed so many of the audio problems that you would have playing PC, or just like getting a PC to stream and then also record your audio at the same time. That got fixed by Discord, unless you wanted to talk in game to the people and then everybody else to hear it. But
well, also it's free too because they had TeamSpeak before. Actually, I think TeamSpeak was first, but you had to pay for a server IP, and then in order to get into it, you had to like type in the server IPs and then get accepted, and then all it was just like rooms. And then Discord came out with this free version where you could have different channels, you could have text, you could have video, you could have all this stuff, and it kind of just took over because of the fact it's free and has all those applications, you know, because no one wants to pay for it.
Have you guys heard of any launch issues with it? Because I remember like when we all did the one, it was like the worst ever for like 6-7 months.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard. No,
I haven't heard anything.
I only watch streamers that play it, and they play the solo shit, right? You know, because they're all on PC. So if they're playing it, they're usually playing like the campaigns by themselves. So I don't think they've mentioned anything about like having trouble in game. But I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know if Drew has or Ryan has. We should also say that Ryan is substituting for Joe because Joe is missing in the woods right now. So if you guys are wondering, forgot to mention that earlier. Joe is missing, so we asked Poon to step in again.
Might be out in the middle of Lake Powell, a broken down boat. He doesn't have Rob there to swim him back to shore. So
yep, he's supposed to be back, so he might still be swimming that boat to shore. You know.
Yeah, never again. I'm done. I'm never swimming a boat anywhere
ever. Yeah, don't blame me, dog. No way. Sorry to cut off what we were talking about, but
also, speaking of lakes, I could tell you guys a good story about lakes. So I was just like doing my normal messing around, listening to stuff, you know, thinking about things, and I found this kind of crazy mystery that I figured Drew would probably find the most interesting. Drew and Mike, just from the biology point of view. Probably me and Ryan would find it more interesting because it could be like conspiratorial in nature. But anyway, I found out about this glacial lake that's in the Himalayas, where essentially, you know, a couple scientists or archaeologists doing their thing, they ended up finding like hundreds and hundreds of skeletons. They call this thing Skeleton Lake. And its other name is Roopkund, Roopkund. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that, but anyway, they found all these skeletal remains in there, and they just assumed like, hey, maybe this is like a ritual site where like maybe some type of battle took place, whatever. But then they found out, this is the catch, that the groups of skeletons were separated by 1,000 years, so almost a millennia. One group of skeletons came from that area, like genetically, and then 1,000 years later, another group of skeletons that were in the lake, they had come from Greece, which is very bizarre because the Himalayas are not very close to Greece. And they all had been what looked like ritualistically murdered. They had been like hit one swift blow to the back of the head, all of them, hundreds of them. So I thought it was the craziest thing that I had seen in recent times. This is like an ongoing mystery. They can't figure out like who these people were or why they were there or what happened to them. Just some random lake in the top of the mountains.
And just a bunch of like genocide, like fucking grave sites almost.
Executions.
Well, they don't know. That's the thing is like, so I guess the lake is holy to the Hindu religion. There's some legend or myth that goes with it. And essentially, I don't know the whole myth. I'm not very familiar with the Hindu religion, just very basic stuff. But I guess the myth is that a bunch of people had gone up there and like kind of like, did something sacrilegious, and a god had struck them all down with a terrible hailstone or a terrible hailstorm. So I don't know. It's really crazy. They don't know if it was like some type of battle or they were taking prisoners up there that they were like executing. But it's just crazy that they're separated by 1,000 years. So that means they like 1,000 years prior, they had brought some people up there, killed them one way. And then 1,000 years later, they bring up these random people from another part of the globe and then kill them the same exact way. And there's no other skeletons like in between. It's very weird. It's one of the strangest things that I've seen.
Yeah, it's weird because you figured if it was like a cultural frequency thing, right? It would be, you'd see a closer resemblance in time frame, right? Not two separate instances divided by a huge gap in time. That is super weird. Like,
Yeah, I thought it was spooky, and then like just from the science side, like it's very weird that like I guess I don't know, as I kind of did like just a kind of surface level look at it, I guess like Greek culture and like Indian culture had mixed at some point. I guess they have gods with very similar, you know what I mean, powers and kind of like characteristics. But yeah, it was just like, I thought it was a trip that you would just find a bunch of Greeks, just all smacked in the back of the head randomly at some lake in the Himalaya. You know what I mean? It's very weird. So I was just deep diving it. And it's like complete mystery right now. Like people haven't solved it yet. So something interesting to kind of keep your eyes on for a while.
Get Graham Hancock on the horn. Figure it out.
I told you guys I recounted on Graham Hancock too. If you guys want to go there, I'll do a public recount.
I remember you mentioned that, but I don't know if you went into detail why. But I think you did mention that you had some conversation that kind of changed your view a little bit.
Well, no. I started reading papers, and that was my downfall. I should have just stuck with reading Graham Hancock. But
you expanded your reading scope.
Yeah, exactly. I started reading some papers, and I mean, I don't know shit about archaeology, so it was like, a lot of this stuff is all new to me. I just think, just for like the record, I guess, I think, Graham Hancock's ideas are interesting. I think they're fun. But the thing that I was always the most interested in is his whole idea that like, there was a cataclysm during the Younger Dryas where like a meteorite hits an ice sheet, sends up, tons of debris, and then also huge waves that like wash up all the coasts. Killing anything that was obviously within its path. And this is kind of tantamount to the biblical flood, right? Like to the flood myth. And following the flood, he posits that like a group of civilizers, essentially, from a previously lost, group of, semi-advanced folks and that were lost in this flood, go out and then civilize the rest of the world following the flood. And so I always kind of took that and was like, hey, it's possible, right? Maybe it's not plausible, but I haven't really seen anything that says there's absolutely no way that we could have had cultures that could have gotten wiped off the map. So that's where I got like where I was like, oh yeah, this could be possible. And then I read some papers that made some really compelling arguments as to why it's probably not possible and didn't happen, and stuff that I didn't think about. So the two major ones were food and sex. So if you have a big, say you have, let's just say you have 50 guys, right, that survived this cataclysm, 50 guys or girls, whatever gender mix you want to do, and they go out to civilize the rest of the world. So are they celibate for the rest of their lives? They never mix with any of the local populations. So you would see it in the DNA profiles that they had, intermingled with these folks in a sexual way. And we don't see that. Doesn't exist. So from a genetic diversity perspective, it didn't happen. And I haven't seen evidence like that Graham Hancock has presented to the contrary of that. And then the second thing is, you would think that like if a bunch of dudes who are setting sail across oceans to civilize other peoples that they find might bring a couple of fruits or vegetables with them that aren't endemic to the area, or that don't grow in the area that they're headed, right? So like, if you're coming from North America or wherever, like maybe you would have brought corn, right? But you just don't see corn anywhere else unless someone brings it there. And they actually have archaeological record that traces these things genetically on where different fruits and vegetables had kind of been mixed. And so I thought that was another really compelling, piece of evidence that, like, dude, if you were going somewhere to teach people how to farm, you'd probably bring some shit you farm, right? Like, I don't know, seemed to make sense. So make me do a full, revision of my beliefs.
Well, no, that's a good point, especially with like the genetics. Looking back at it, this actually, today I was telling you I actually had to do schoolwork, reading those papers for a class. It was actually on tracking common ancestry to all humans back to Africa using like mitochondrial DNA strands from like different populations around the world and pretty much different hypotheses, and reading 4 papers on the differences and seeing which one like stands out the most and is the most scientific, like most standard, or most, I guess, the strongest with the way they did the research. But yeah, you definitely see there's a lot of ways that you can determine that now. People have definitely been trying to figure this out for a long time.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that the gene sequencing has gotten that good where they can actually see when people started intermingling. I never really considered that either. That's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of things Graham Hancock says that I don't really take at face value, especially like when it comes to like Antarctic cultures. But I like Graham Hancock because he's not a scientist and he approaches things from like obliquely, that the scientific world would, and abstracts large ideas that maybe the scientific community would never even think about. And I mean, when you really press him on some of these issues, he kind of just defaults to the position of like, hey, I'm just here asking the questions that no one else wants to ask, or presenting a different side of the argument, and I'm leaving it for them to figure it out. But once he starts like pushing deep into that younger Dryas and being like, oh, this is evidence, you got to have you have to substantiate that evidence. So it's kind of unfortunate that some of it's fallen apart, but because I mean, it's a great romantic story that like what he says is we're a society or a race with amnesia, and we have these large cataclysmic events that just completely, we get to a certain point and then they reset us. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like I said, I always wanted to think about it like this, just because, like you said, like I mean, if you just took approaching things obliquely, like if you just took it all at face value, what would you ever learn? You just wouldn't ask any questions, right? You would never investigate new things. So I don't know. I thought a lot of the things that he talked about started to resonate with me when we started to see that like maybe our historical record isn't complete. And, they obviously, this has been way overblown, but maybe not a lot of people have heard about it. Like Göbekli Tepe, right? Like when they found Göbekli Tepe, which is Turkish for Potbelly Hill. It's in Turkey. Basically, it's like a megalithic structure that was built and then immediately buried. And no one knows why they did it, right? Like just some pre-agriculture society who we didn't think had the capability to do this, did it. So I thought that's weird, right? And I'm not saying it's a vindication of Hancock, but it certainly makes you wonder, what else don't we know, right? And then when you start to see some of the absolutely just like magnificent changes that the Earth can go through, and that can be hard for us to contextualize. Like, the idea that the Northeast, like where I live right now, was under a mile of ice, 13 or 14, 15, something like that, 1,000 years ago. That's wild, man, to think about. Like, I don't know how heavy a mile of ice is. I can't do the physics off the top of my head, but it sounds pretty heavy and pretty big.
Well, the super continent always gets me, that we were one big continent at one time. And that's how you can see simulations between like species and all that stuff drastically across the globe and fossils. Because at one point in time, we were just one big landmass. Like, imagine that, dude. Like, that's crazy to think about too, that land masses could cross this. Yeah, they're continually moving.
Becoming a Pangea again or whatever, or Pangea like supercontinent, and then breaking apart again, right? Or at least that's what I remember reading. Like, people are just thinking about these things in the future.
Well, that would make sense because we're still moving. Like, the continents are still moving. They're still measuring that. So it would only make sense, right, that eventually they would come back together in another, maybe not the same formation, but in a similar similar supercontinent formation, all connected, and then break apart again.
Yeah. I would like to Drew's point too. I would like to see Graham Hancock in a debate. I've never seen him like really debate anyone. I've seen him give like a lecture, but
I think it's good when you have creative people talk.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Well, no one from academia will debate him, because that's like not to make a completely unrealistic analogy here, but like when Donald Trump met Kim Jong-un, like no sitting president had met Kim Jong-un not because they didn't want to try to have peace with North Korea, but because they didn't want to recognize him as a world leader, right? Like, that's why people hadn't done it previously. And it's the same thing. Like, no one that is an expert in their field is going to just go sit down with Graham Hancock to have a debate, because now you're actually acknowledging that his ideas have merit and that they're debatable. I think most people in academia just say, no, everything he says is completely false.
Yeah.
What is his credential? Was it journalist?
Yeah, he's an investigative journalist.
Gotcha.
Who's been writing books like since the 90s. He doesn't. I don't think he does a ton of journalism anymore. I think now he's basically like an independent researcher.
Gotcha.
He's like dedicated his life to this stuff.
So that makes total sense. Like, why academia wouldn't acknowledge him.
Well, also too, like, academia is probably not acknowledging him too, because then they're acknowledging that his merits and not his education is making him an equal like counterpart to these guys who have like PhDs, and this is their like they're expert in their fields, and this guy comes up and is just challenging them. So I think it's maybe like one of those things. Like, you're not up to my level, so I'm not entertaining it. Yeah. Well, he has a degree, probably, but not. He's not up to that same par of person. It's like, why would I waste my time debating somebody that doesn't have the same type of educational background and level of expertise as I do?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. No, you can't name the beast or name the demon to give him power.
Exactly.
He who shall not be named.
That's right.
Yep.
Although Graham Hancock's a little bit less nefarious than most.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's that bad of a guy. He's got some kooky ideas. But I still like all of his ideas. I still think he's cool. I wish he'd do less of the whole like human interconnectedness, weird stuff. And just kind of do more of like the cool stuff. Tell me about Egypt.
That's Joe Rogan's fault, man. Got him back on the weed, so he started doing all the psychedelics.
Dude, that's all you saw that Rogan episode when he had who's the homie that he had on when Graham Hancock wrote the foreword of his book or whatever. He's the dude researching like hallucinogenics and faith and all that kind of stuff. But that's all he talked about. There's psychedelics this, psychedelics that. It's the only way that we can. You got to make your presidents take psychedelics or they can't be presidents. I'm like, come on, man. It's too much now. Give it up. Give it a rest.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things like, oh, you're just stretching a little bit too far now. It was good, but now
Could you imagine that like a psychedelic experience was like oh, you've now been elected president. Go wander in the desert on peyote. Like, why would you ever think that?
Wouldn't it be it would be before that as part of it'd be like, you know, in the military with those stupid indoctrination ceremonies where they make you stay up all night and do this like stupid thing. Like, wouldn't that be like the president's thing right before inauguration? He's got to stay up all night and do an LSD trip or a mushroom trip and then go to his inauguration and do his speech and not look like an idiot. And that's his like pass or whatever. Like,
I just don't understand like why they say that so much. It's like it's not going to up anybody's qualification to do pretty much anything.
It's the same argument people say you shouldn't be president if you've never served in the military, right? You can't be commander in chief if you've never actually been in the military, you know?
Yeah, I think that's stupid. I think that's a stupid argument.
Yeah, I think that's real stupid.
Yeah, for sure. But it falls under the same lines, right? If you,
but this is also the guy. I was just gonna say, Joe Rogan's also the guy that thinks that eating elk gives you superpowers. So.
Yeah, and that smoking pot makes him 10% better at everything.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly 10%. Exactly.
He's got to measure it down, dude. You know.
Very precise.
I love it when
you're eating a super athlete.
I like what I would watch him on like some podcast where he has like a doctor on like listing supplements and he whips out like a notepad and a pen and he's like, hold on, I can't write them down all this fast. I was like, Jamie, take note so we can order them later. And then like on one podcast, next thing you know, like his Amazon cart's full of fucking vitamins and shit.
Yeah. Yeah,
I bet he spends like at least 10, 15 minutes in his morning routine doing all of his vitamins.
Oh, dude, and whatever other stretches or weird like stuff he's got going on. Oh, for sure, bro. You know, you had the cryotherapy thing in there and like all this other stuff he does. He probably has like, it's probably like 2 hours worth of rituals he does to prevent his aging stuff, you know, at least.
Dude, that's the dream though, right? I mean, isn't that what you wanted? Like, I don't know. After, you know, getting out and like going to college now, like my daily routine, I don't want it to ever change. I'd love to have my daily routine I have right now forever. It's great. And that's pretty much what he has.
Right.
Does whatever he wants.
Right.
All day.
Yeah. Makes his own schedule. Do whatever the fuck he wants all the time, man. But.
And he's got that fat Spotify contract.
Right.
Now.
Make $100 million, man. Like, I couldn't even imagine it. I couldn't imagine it, dude. I don't even know what you'd do at that point. Besides just whatever you want.
Right, that's pretty much your limit.
Have you seen Rogan's mansion in Texas?
No.
You get it for like $200,000.
Yeah.
No, but it is unbelievable.
How big is it? Is it like a true blue mansion?
I'll pull it up right now.
I know he's got like a really crazy car collection too. He's got like a Barracuda. He's got a '65 Corvette. He's got a bunch of crazy shit. Obviously, the Tesla that Elon gave him. He's got a bunch of cars, but
did he fully move to Texas, or has he still got his house in Cali and stuff? He's only like now he's got 2 houses set up, or
I think he fully bounced, bro. I think
did he? Okay.
It's
It's got to be such a big house.
Yeah, I mean
it's a $14 million house.
Oh yeah, that's a big old house in Texas. That's big. That's called a ranch.
Yeah, here I'll share it.
Yeah, 14 mil, man. You know, that'll get me a nice 2-bedroom here in New York City.
Look at that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's big, man. It's beautiful.
Wow.
Mike,
Here,
can you click
inside.
on that?
Oh my god.
There you go.
Pretty crazy.
It didn't come furnished like that, did it?
No. I think this was like what it was like when it was
when they decorated
shown
it,
or
trying to sell it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But dude, look at that kitchen. That kitchen's huge.
Insane. Look how big that is.
Ridiculous.
It's like a restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, and it's right on the
Wow.
river too.
Right on the
That's
river.
super nice.
Just another dude who's come to ruin Texas.
Unbelievable,
He's gonna
dude.
bring his LA, ruin Texas.
So true.
Yeah.
Imagine Joe Rogan moving next door to you.
I wouldn't complain because that means I also probably spent somewhere in the ballpark of 10 million.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like, well, if I have that much money, I'm probably happy already, you know? Like,
Something seriously has gone right in my
He's-
life. If
he's
that,
probably half a
Joe
mile
Rogan
away.
becomes my neighbor, either he's done something really bad,
yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah, but what else have you guys seen anything else pop up from like anything on like the Reddit or with the election or news stuff in the last week? It seems like it's been died down a lot since the elections hit, you know?
Just got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, election's over, dude.
Yeah.
It's over, dude. So it's boring now. I think everybody's pretty much over it. I don't know. I've been watching picks. You know what I mean? As Biden starts to kind of build up his administration, I've been trying to, follow that, see who's going to be who. But I don't know, man. I'm just waiting it out, man. Hoping that my taxes don't go up. That's all. Finally be making some money and give it right back to the man.
Wasn't that the perfect timing, right? The entire time where you weren't making any money, and then as soon as you start making it, now you got to start paying it back.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's all right. What are you gonna do? Such is life.
So that redistribution of wealth.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we'll see, man. I mean, I don't really see much changing. I mean, I think he's going to be just a super moderate dude. So, the same. It's Obama 2.0. That's all it's going to be. He's going to be a super moderate dude who does some like left leaning stuff. Nothing crazy, man.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't start as many wars as Obama did.
Can we get that clipped so when we start getting re-educated, we can look back at Rob saying that?
If we get re-educated, this podcast clips won't be around anymore, right?
Oh yeah, they'll shut us down for sure.
Dude, oh yeah, it'll be this. They'll wipe everything, dude.
Yeah, I think I saw an Obama interview that I thought was pretty bad. But I'm not a huge fan of him. So. As far as like a lot of the policies like Drew brought up, started a million wars and, whatever. But yeah, I saw an interview with him. There were some good parts, some bad parts. He blamed Donald Trump for kids in cages when it's like, we all know that this is a really old policy. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it's like real tired, boring. So it's very boring. State of politics is very boring and disappointing.
Wasn't Trump like the first president since like I read that since Jimmy Carter that didn't start like a new conflict?
Yeah, but I personally don't put a lot of weight on that kind of stuff because, like, all right, like George Bush started a conflict. I mean, somebody rammed 2 fucking jets in the Twin Towers. Like, I mean, what was he supposed to do, right? So, like, situation will dictate, right? Like, I think there's contingencies that happen, and there's not much.
How many did Obama like reopen? Didn't he reopen like 16 or 18 different conflicts during 3 different like stages? Like it.
I don't think he reopened any conflicts. I think probably he's most famous for Syria and Libya. Those are probably the 2 big ones that like people aren't super excited about. And then obviously Drew is very, very upset about the Afghan surge and the drawdown in Iraq. But yeah, I mean, I think those 2, as far as theaters of war, are what he's kind of known for doing, right? Like killing Gaddafi, and him in the State Department, and then also actions in Syria, and I mean Syria was at full scale war. Yeah, I remember 2010, like sitting in a chow hall, like looking at the news, watching the news on Syria, and being like, damn, dude, like these guys are straight up full scale war, like 50,000 casualties, like completely destroyed cities. Like, I mean, it was no joke. So like that war was raging before Obama really ever said like, oh yeah, we're going to go in there and do something with American troops.
I was there. I was floating outside there actually. I actually got my deployment got extended because my replacement got pulled to deal with that. I think a Harrier went down or one of our helicopters went down. So the MEU that was replacing me got pulled to go do rescue missions there, and like I ended up having to sit there for an extra week or two, and then we were essentially waiting for that to stabilize before we could leave our AO because they got pulled into that conflict instead of replacing us. So we had 2 MEUs out now operational at one time instead of one replacing one and one going home. And then we missed all of our Liberty ports going home. Of course, like we missed them going there. So, but yeah.
Damn you, Obama!
Yep.
Do you know what I was doing then? I was literally cleaning my SIF gear when he drew the line in the sand, and I was like, "This motherfucker! I just got done cleaning all my SIF gear, and I'm gonna have to wear it all and then re-clean it again." So I was like, "There's no." I was like, I'm gonna get extended. They're gonna activate my reserve status as active duty. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the stuff that I get the most bent out of shape about is less that like Obama like started conflicts, but more like, I actually argue with John and other folks about this all the time. Like, extrajudicially killing a terrorist who was an American citizen via drone strike. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. When you kill an American without a court trial, it's one of my biggest pet peeves for sure. And then yeah, I think all the stuff that we've been doing in Africa for quite a while now, that like the American public has zero clue. They're not paying attention to any of this shit. All their tax money is being used in it. Those are open theaters of war that I think like actual hot wars, like hot combat, not like kinetic stuff, not just going over there and dropping a bomb really quick and leaving or something like that. You have troops on the ground, like what happened in Niger. Where you had a bunch of SF dudes just literally get fucking bulldozed by the Islamic State. And Congress.
The day we found out it was all pronounced instead.
What's up?
Instead of Niger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The day we all found out it was pronounced Niger.
No, yeah. I mean, it's crazy though. Like that kind of stuff was that kind of stuff's no good. When Congress is finding out that we're paying for wars because dead troops show up on their doorstep. That's kind of interesting, right? It's weird.
Well, that's definitely something a lot of people don't know about, You talk to them or you say something to them and, like going to Afghanistan or Iraq is safer than going to Africa right now, for the majority, depending on what level of tier you're at. But like everybody only looks at Iraq and Afghanistan as like the front lines like they used to be, where now it's like if you're getting deployed and stuff to Africa, like you're probably doing more kinetic work than you are in Afghanistan or Iraq depending on obviously your unit you're with, but a lot of people don't even know we're in Africa in general. No one has no idea. They just think we're in Iraq and Afghanistan. So like that's the only place the terrorists are at, and that's it. Like same thing with like the Philippines. The Philippines used to be a little bit more, I guess, active than it is now, but. Like a lot of people were surprised a lot of people were surprised that they even existed down there and that we had troops down there fighting them. It's like, terrorism is a global thing. It just doesn't exist in two places, Yeah,
I mean, I think generally like the American people don't really have the inclination to be super concerned with war. I mean, we talk about this all the time, like where I go to school, because it's, the college that I go to was, founded by Dwight Eisenhower. He was the reigning president of the college for many years after he came home from World War II. And we just talk about like the disconnect between citizen and soldier, right? Like the general kind of malaise that swept over the population. And now people generally just don't have the stomach for this kind of thing, right? Or they think it's beyond them. Like there's no way I can really get it, right? Like the military is just this big thing, and war is kind of something that America does. And it's just not my lane. I just stay out of that stuff. That's kind of what I've seen a lot of people do. They don't know how to have the conversation about it. They don't know how to talk about it. So of course they're not going to ask like, do you, I mean, I don't know. I was always curious and interested in that kind of stuff, but I could see how the general person just doesn't necessarily want to see, what America is doing in every corner of the globe every night. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think generally speaking, people don't know about it because nobody tells you, right? Like it's not like they advertise this stuff. It's not like the media's, they don't have like a drone strike count on CNN. You know what I mean? They don't like show you, every day, where your tax dollars go in the defense engine. So It's tough, man. But hopefully, I mean, we didn't see much drawback through this administration either. So we didn't see any escalation. We didn't heat up, except maybe like once or twice. But generally speaking, you know what I mean. And I've still been having arguments with people about this too. Like, I don't know. I still believe that like the Obama administration just had a different paradigm. I don't think that they were like. I was talking to Ryan about this too. Like, I don't think that they were bad, right? Like a lot of people think like Obama's the devil, like he's a bad guy. I just think they had misguided policy in the Middle East. Like when we're talking about wars, more generally. I think that they wanted Iran to be more of a player at the table, and more like the Middle Eastern superpower that is kind of dictating things in the region, and then we could slowly kind of abscond away from this problem, this nightmare that is the Middle East, for America, for American lives, for American treasure, etc. And they just couldn't successfully do that, man. Like Saudi Arabia is a big power. They have their Islamic infighting, and I don't think the Iran paradigm is the right approach. And I don't know. I still have arguments with people about this all the time. If you guys are interested in it, there was a congressional committee organized on it. They published a report called the Baker-Hamilton Report. I kind of basically first 5 pages of it is Obama's foreign policy for 8 years, and it was written several years prior to Obama becoming president. So he obviously learned something from that document. But yeah, so I'm not sure, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that all falls in line with he systematically had his White House press secretary not answer any questions on drone strikes whatsoever, and didn't divulge the amount of drone strikes that were going on during his term as well. Like the transparency that we had with Trump. And it's kind of hilarious that he would highlight Trump putting kids in cages when Obama deported more than anybody ever has. So,
I mean, yeah, these are the things, right? Like that happen, right? There's always kind of some consolidation of executive power through every president, and you see kind of more sweeping executive overreach. I mean, I don't know, man. When it comes to I don't you I mean, you guys all get it, right? Like we were all in the military, and like we get, when we say like having the stomach, when I say having the stomach for things, it's not an insult to the everyday person, right? Like this isn't glorious or fun things. Like when you talk about dropping bombs on people and stuff like that. Like it's not like it's not a joke, it's not lighthearted stuff. So having the stomach for it isn't necessarily like a great thing. But early on in the conflict, when the various lettered agencies out there were using torture as a means to get information, right? Did the American public really have the stomach for that? Like, should we have advertised that? Should we go online and talk about, or should we go on the news and do some major press publications and talk about, how we're waterboarding dudes, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. I mean, it's sometimes we make mistakes. We go the wrong direction. We're trying to be, trying to do the right thing, end up doing the wrong thing in a big way. And so you don't want to advertise this stuff. You know what I mean? Not saying it's right, but
right.
It's just these are hard conversations to have, right? Like
it's also
like. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
It was also like a reactionary thing at the time, right? We talk about like the American population is willing to open the door up. Like we always talk about like why everybody loves like General Mattis is because he had this reputation of like during the Iraq War, like just unleashing the ROEs, to like kill everybody or type of thing. Where after the 9/11, we gave like the American people kind of just they were kind of just willing to let the floodgates open, and then without realizing what that meant or actually caring for like a detail of like what that actually meant until it came out 10 years later when everybody was in a completely different mindset of what they enacted 10 years before that, right after the initial reaction,
You have to be a very good student of history to know what you're getting yourself into. And then even then you're probably still going to make the wrong bet. You know what I mean?
Right. You're still making a bet,
I think the best part is the media. If you could look back at like the media back when that happened, like they were banging the war drums, all of them. They were just pumping war, and like everybody was like,
pumping war?
Yeah. If you ever look back like YouTube, there's people that consolidated like clips from just pundits from back from 9/11, and it's like before, the whole thing was like, oh, there are no weapons of mass destruction. Like leading up to that, like most media places, pundits were like banging the war drum,
Yeah, no,
selling
I
it
mean,
to the American people, of why we should go to Iraq or whatever,
I don't
Afghanistan,
think there was
whatever.
any. I don't think there was any people that weren't really down to take it to him, man. Like I don't think there. I don't think that was like a really. Maybe there were some pacifists out there, obviously, but I think by and large, like early on, yeah, it was absolutely the popular thing to do. I mean, you just watched 3,000 of your own citizens get smoked. Like, yeah,
I think that
let's go to
the
war.
video that I saw was like kind of like, and then showing the media today, or like not obviously 2020, but 6-8 years later, do a 180.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they should have, dude. I mean, dude, this is the longest war in American history. Dude, there are guys that invaded Afghanistan who their kids are in the military right now, probably going to do a fucking deployment to Afghanistan.
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that we just never committed to.
You should be tired.
Yeah.
Be a little fatigued at war after continuous war for decades on several fronts, I mean,
yeah, well, it's definitely the first where you're going to have generational campaign medals shared between, people. Like, you had those very rare instances where, I guess it's more of where someone is in the military without their kid, gets out, has a kid, then their kid joins the military, instead of having shared medals where their dad joins the military late in like a Vietnam or Gulf or something, and then their kid joins later, but this is literally where they probably got out, had their kid grew up and is now joining the war, where they never served in the military at the same time. And I think that's the biggest part, like that's probably a first for sure.
No, it's definitely a first. I mean, this is the longest war in American history, for sure. It's like no other war beats it.
Yeah, definitely, and
no end in sight either.
Yeah, nope. I mean,
stuff
for sure. It's a bottomless pit, and I mean, we even talk about like the atrocities that are going on in Yemen, which we started, and now we're helping the Saudi Arabians systematically like commit genocide against the Houthis. So,
well, and that's the thing is like when you fight these kind of cold war. I mean, I don't pretend to understand every aspect of these conflicts. I mean, because they're incredibly complicated, especially when it comes to the split between Shia and Sunni Muslims, and just how they are just not going to get along with one another within the confines of those borders. I don't know. Like basically, as the American government, it seems like an impossible feat to create some type of foreign policy around like a completely fractionalized, like literally thousands of factions of dudes that are between, the Euphrates and Africa, that all want to kill each other, but then also want to kill you. It's like, how do you begin to put the pieces on the board? You know what I mean? I don't know how you fix it. I definitely don't have any smart ideas besides just calling it quits. It's tough to win a war in Afghanistan. It's okay to bow out. Many others have done it prior to us. So might as well.
It's an unconquerable land, right? No one can do it. Everyone has tried. No one can stay,
I think only Alexander the Great did, right? And that was by cutting off everybody's head on the way. I mean.
Well, that is the sure way, because we would have done that to begin with, right? If we would have just walked through like straight up invasion style instead of having it like a political win the hearts and minds game. Maybe we could have ended it, or at least been able to draw down our presence longer if we would have pushed through Afghanistan into Pakistan and actually maybe took a more frontal assault and invasion style instead of a political, play it slow, win hearts and minds, only attack who are attacking you, Obviously, don't go kill innocent people, but maybe a more aggressive approach, Well,
I think it was maximally aggressive. Like there was, at least like, where Drew was in Sangin, like they had the Brits owned that AO and got slaughtered there. I mean, it was like, I don't think there's any way to pacify like Afghanis. There's just not a way to do it. I read an interesting book called The Art of Not Being Governed. It's by this Yale professor. And he kind of talks about hill people and how you just cannot govern. You can't conquer hill people. You just can't do it. No matter what you want to do, it's not possible. And you see it in Southeast Asia. You see it in Asia proper. You see it in all corners of the globe, in the Caucasus. You just people who are from the mountains, who have very deep, like, roots. Dude, you can't beat them. You just can't. And you can't govern them. They won't listen. They'll do whatever they want. And they live in inhospitable terrain. So it's not like you're going to be able to send people to go watch them. They're the only ones who want to live there,
Right. I was about to say, isn't that the key, right? Is if you the people that live in the most obscure places are the hardest people to try to conquer or govern, right? Because whatever you're gonna do to them is nothing that the environment is not gonna do them. Like they've already mastered living there. Like anything you're gonna try to starve them out. What you're like, they're like, oh, this is easy, bro. Like we're used to this,
It's their house, man.
Yeah, plus think about how, not only are they tougher than you, how much money it costs to run the bureaucracy and the institutions to try to govern an area like that. Like, it's something we take for granted. It's something I would think about all the time when I was living in Montana, working at Yellowstone, and just realizing, like, dude, there's really literally only one road in and out of this place. And it's a 2-lane road, and if something happens to it, that's fucking it. No one's coming.
You guys are stranded, dude.
Yeah.
That's true, man. I don't know. But yeah, speaking of the Middle East, you guys see this scientist that got whacked in Iran?
Bro, I saw that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, here we go again.
So did you guys ever see the background of this kind of shit? Like, were you guys following this years ago when Israeli science, or not Israelis, but Iranian scientists just started popping up dead?
No.
You turned me on to this because you're talking about like dudes riding up with like on dirt bikes next to like scientist cars and just throwing like C4 satchel on them and just burning up and just detonating it.
There was one, I think it was in 2009, and the guy literally sped up on him on a motorcycle, stuck a bomb in Iranian scientist car, drove away, and detonated the dude.
That's some Hollywood shit.
Jesus.
Yeah. They think they think it's all Mossad, right? Like all Israeli Mossad trying to keep these guys from developing a nuclear program. But I don't know. I think we did pretty well knocking out their nuclear program. You just need a USB stick. You don't need a bunch of bombs. Right? USB, and there go the centrifuges. We don't know what happened.
Well, Mossad is notorious for fucking killing people in whichever way they fancy. Like putting a bomb on a scientist car is definitely not be a surprise. Like
I would not be surprised at all if that was Israeli. We've all seen like the Munich games and like all the the retaliation that came after that and stuff, and that they're definitely down. They're definitely they've been in constant warfare since they became a country. Like they know what they're doing.
Right. If it was us, we would have been a drone strike. So it can't be us because we're definitely not gonna have a guy on a bike.
Yeah.
We're just gonna drone strike them. So.
Well, yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because this is probably as hot as the region has gotten with something like this happening since Trump nuked that dude. God, what was it? I don't know how to pronounce his name, but
Soleimani.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, but I haven't heard the war cry. Maybe it's because Trump's on his way out of office that you don't hear the war cry like you did before, where everyone, like. I
don't think we're gonna do anything except we're certainly just going to play them the small violin. Like, sorry. But, I don't think we're going to do anything.
Did you see the tweet on Biden's, potentially nominated John Brennan, who made a tweet on it talking about how it was irresponsible and warrants retaliation or something along those lines?
Yeah, I wouldn't stoke the fire of the Iranian retaliation. Not not where I'd start, but no, yeah. These things are. To a degree, it depends on how you look at it, right? If you're hawkish and you really just want to take Iran off the map, you probably think this is a great thing. But if you want to see things kind of resemble some type of peace where people aren't threatening each other with nukes, and I don't know, man. It's a shady situation. So any escalation, you never know what could be the tipping point, right? Like you never know what is going to send everyone into full scale. Just we're gonna try to annihilate you now, especially with how Iran essentially always is acting as if they're on their heels from the whole world. You know, like the whole world is out to get them. Which, you know, to some degree is kind of true. I mean, they're assholes, right? Like they're not the nicest. You know, I'm typically not a fan of theocracies that love murdering and, you know, doing all types of crazy stuff like they do. But
their Olympic wrestler they just had murdered.
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, fuck. Yeah, they do. They have some crazy customs, man. They're, you know, that they're not messing around. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you never know. I always wonder too, like what will send people, what will send this region like over the edge, right? Like, but it seems like they're kind of, you know, they keep their heads about. I guess they're just so used to fighting each other and killing each other that like they keep their heads when they die. You know, they're just like, oh well, inshallah, moving on. You know.
Well, there's always that saying, you know, they fight each other until an infidel invades, and then they band up to fight the infidel until they leave, and then they fight each other again for territory. So it's like that's part of the problem too. Is, you know, like you're fighting everybody in Afghanistan only when you're there. If you're not there, everybody in Afghanistan or in these other countries are fighting each other, but they hate you more than they hate the other person. So when you invade or you show your presence, then now you're fucked because you get everybody against you. You know, they all hate you. They all hate each other just as much, and they will work together with each other to fight you, but you're still fighting multiple people. It's weird, I mean, you know.
If you look at like the Iraq conflict, it shows everything. Like where Iraq is now, where you have Sunni, Shia, Kurds, a power vacuum from Syria. You know, I mean, everybody's proxying. Russia's involved, Iran's involved, Saudi Arabia's involved. Everybody's involved. You know, we're certainly involved. It's crazy.
I always wonder how many
Iranian scientists.
Go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
How many Iranian scientists are the Israeli Mossad going to have to kill for them to give up on the nuclear weapons program? All of them?
All of them.
Just never going to give up?
All of them.
I mean, yeah, I don't think. I mean, both sides don't seem to have a whole lot of quit in them. I don't think the Iranians are ever going to give up. That's for sure. No way.
Yeah.
Was
it the 80s? Was it the 80s when the Israeli Air Force just straight up bombed their reactor?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
They're like, we can't risk it. We're sending the full Air Force in.
All 5 points.
I mean, what are you gonna do? You know, I mean, it's tough, man. Like, if you're chilling in this part of the world where everybody's just like, yeah, you just stole this land from us, and like I remember it. It was like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you know, in the 80s, if you're talking about like, yeah, man, you got problems, you know, you gotta be the dude who's like beating up the bullies, right? Like if somebody tries to bully you on the block, you got to hit the biggest guy as hard as you can, as fast as you can to show everybody you mean business. Or else, you know, and they're tiny, man. They're a tiny little place, dude. They get wiped off the map quick.
Imagine living there. Like, imagine living there and having this turf war going on. And like the other team is about to be like, you know, just trying to get a nuke. That'd be fucking scary.
They're all brutal to each other, man. They're all brutal to each other. Israel and Gaza, man, they're very brutal to Palestinians. Although I think most people are. Everybody gives Israel a bad rep about it, but like I've told you guys about, like say like in Lebanon, you're like, if you're a Palestinian, you're just literally, it's illegal for you to become any kind of like what we would consider a classic profession. It's illegal to be a lawyer or a doctor if you're a Palestinian. Like you've literally been legislated against in places like Lebanon. So like people give Israel bad rep, but there's many parts of the world that are just as bad to each other. So it's all a fucking mess, man.
It's like if you were to pick apart that, then you could go every country around it and pick that apart all day long, you know. You could keep expanding around Israel and keep doing things like that, you know, like they're just literally fighting a turf war in a modern period where you just can't like literally just do full out conquer warfare, you know, where everybody lines up and just goes to straight up war until someone runs out of people, you know. They're just fighting. Like, imagine if this was 200 or 300 years or 1,000 years ago, you know. It would just be everybody lined up on the fucking battlefield and just decided in like 5 or 10 years, you know, be done. Max.
Well, I don't want to go down a deep hole on warfare, but we were arguing about this the other day because I'm a fan of classic warfare. and all this new age stuff really rubs me the wrong way. I wish we could just get online and solve it, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. It's better than like I made the argument to Ryan the other day, like trench warfare in the Civil War, terrible. Trench warfare in World War I. Like these were not positive adaptations to warfare. Like it didn't make like getting in line and then shooting at each other like in the Civil War or in the Revolution, like seems infinitely better than getting eaten alive by rats in a trench. You know what I mean? I don't know. In the line, you know what I mean?
Your feet fall off.
Right. You just roll your dice and not being the guy that gets shot on his turn to be in the front of the line, you know?
And avoid the cannons. That's it.
Yeah. Bro, the cannon videos of like
the bowling ball flying through the air.
Yeah, just taking people's limbs off, dude. Oh my god, bro.
The getting eaten alive by rats. That's if you survived getting mustard gassed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's terrible. No. I don't know. I mean, asymmetric warfare that you see today, like guerrilla warfare, that kind of stuff, that stuff's not fun either, you know? Like, I mean, I don't know.
That's almost just as bad, right? It's almost like World War II version of warfare was almost like the almost happy medium between like super guerrilla warfare and like trench, like gas or staying up in a line and shoot each other warfare, you know? Like,
I think everybody had enough. I think like after World War I, people's psychologies about war had changed. Like they were just like, dude, we're not doing the trench thing again. Okay,
can't do that to each other.
Right.
Everybody's putting on a uniform and we're gonna fight. You know? We're not doing the trench thing.
That's why like the OSS and like special forces and stuff was such a hard thing to sell, you know, because everybody was like, we're not going down that rabbit hole again of unconventional warfare, you know. So it took a long time for those types of things to like kind of take hold and build.
Stuff, I mean, that stuff is like, generally speaking, and I'm probably, there's probably some experts out there who would really want to slap me around for saying this, but because I don't consider myself an expert. But generally speaking, a lot of that stuff is executed so poorly that it ends up working against us, like what you saw in Vietnam, right? Like what we did in Vietnam, like by setting up all those small little like hamlets that we then tried to support and like win over the hearts and mind thing. The French did that in the French Indochina War, and they got their asses whipped. And we went in, didn't learn shit, and did the same exact thing. It's a lot of these types of special warfare, guerrilla warfare, or that type of warfare is not necessarily always very clean. I think the only place that it ever worked out well was when we were doing it in South America, like with the Contras.
Or the Revolutionary War. You know, like, it's like, I think it only works if it's probably unregulated and not, like, because that's a lot of the problem in, like, the Vietnam War with a lot of the guys in the guerrilla warfare side was, it was so politicized that they were kind of they were strung up a lot, you know, on what they were able to do. But if you were actually doing a guerrilla warfare front without like the political limitations of, here's your left and right lateral limits versus just go kill the enemy, type of thing, I think plays a lot into the way that the outcome plays out,
Yeah, I mean, I would give the political side of it obviously credence. I just think, there were blunders. Like there was like just straight up blunders. From a strategic standpoint, once again, you're talking about hill people again. Very difficult to conquer, very difficult to govern. Gross underestimation, making the same mistakes the French made, not really understanding the doctrine of the warfare that you're fighting. And we had, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we had the superior technology in the form of helicopters. We had the will earlier in the war to win. So from a political perspective, I don't think it was really ever a popular war, but we had the will. Until it started becoming like in Afghanistan or in Iraq, like Ryan mentioned, where 8 years later, dudes are just kind of like, all right, man, like, can I have kids? Can I just go to college? Like,
well, especially, and the death toll too in Vietnam compared to what we're dealing with now is like, was never as high, like the average life expectancy of like a first lieutenant on a hot LZ in Vietnam was what, like 30 seconds or something, like the life expectancy in Vietnam too was a lot less than like the Afghan wars have been too, like people were just getting killed so much faster in Vietnam, I feel like, which made the burnout a lot faster too, like we're losing a lot of people. It's been going on a long time. What's the point? You know, they didn't attack us. Like, what are we doing here?
That's not true. I saw the Gulf of Tonkin. They did attack us.
But I always wonder about that part too, you know.
No, that's like proving
that burns you out. Nothing burns you out like every single tactical maneuver you've ever learned in your entire career, completely ineffective. Just walk in a straight line. Check for tertiaries, secondaries, and quaternaries. Like that doesn't break the will to fight at all.
You guys
especially when your generation's going.
Have you guys seen that movie Legends of the Fall?
Yes. Brad Pitt.
Whenever I think of World War One. Yeah. There's that World War One. Like I think it's in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where like there's the gas and all that stuff. Every time you were talking about trench warfare, I just getting like flashbacks to the movie when I was a kid.
Dude, World War One.
I'm watching a little clip of it.
Great movie.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I couldn't.
Did you ever hear Did you ever hear Dan Carlin's World War One?
I haven't, but I heard it's very good.
I love all his shit, dude.
Like when he talks about the first time they encountered, the British encountered chlorine gas because the Germans used it on them, and they tried shooting it to stop it.
Yeah.
That reminds me of...
They didn't know what to do. They were like, there's just like a white wall is like moving towards them, and then there's like a diary entry, and and then all of a sudden like all of the shots went silent, and then they ran over the wall and just found like these contorted dead bodies, like all fucked up, aspirated, you know.
Yeah,
Dude,
it's
fuck that gas warfare
shit. If I
shit.
had to fight in a war, it definitely probably wouldn't have been that one.
Oh, dude, yeah. No, thanks, bro.
I'm good. Mess.
I'm good on the fucking trench warfare shit, dude.
Just running across
and the gas
out of your trench to another fucking group of people with guns pointing at you in a trench.
You gotta take the ground, man. Gotta take the ground.
Take the ground, dog. That's right, dude.
I don't know, man. I think like the interesting stuff like that I read about when it comes to like the warfare aspect of these unconquerable people, it always for me goes into the government direction, because like I just don't understand. Like, even if you win, what do you do? Like, how do you stay victorious? It seems really difficult. So I always find that to be the interesting question.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys know how many people died in the Revolutionary War? Just off the top of your head, like a guess.
150,000?
No, it's close to 1 million at least, I think. It's something I don't remember, but I know it's up there.
We got 150.
I'll go
150K.
Yeah, I got 1 million. 1 million's my guess.
What do you got, Rob? Rob might have.
He's probably taking
Come back to Rob. Come back to Rob.
We'll come back.
Dude, it's gonna surprise you.
I know.
6,800.
That's it? Holy shit!
Yeah, I knew it was like I almost wanted to say 50K, but I felt like
I'm surprised about that.
People grossly overestimate the amount of people that were killed in the Revolutionary War. 6,800, and I think a lot more. Like close to 20,000 died to disease. But yeah, we just have like this. The way we look at it is we look at it on a much grander scale. Essentially, like the way that war played out is we didn't do a whole lot of fighting until the very end, because we literally had to wait to get trained to fight conventionally. Because we fought like, you know, this guerrilla type warfare. It really wasn't all that effective. Yes,
Have you seen The Patriot?
Oh, I know all about the Swamp Fox. You know what Swamp Fox is?
No.
That's the character that Mel Gibson's based off of Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox.
Gotcha. Dude, such a good movie.
I always assumed it was more just because of the lack of medicine and disease factor, you know? I figured it was like a one-shot kill almost back then, you know? Like, where... And I guess that's why I thought it was longer or more, is because like if you get shot, I figured your like chance of survival is pretty low, you know.
Super low.
Especially with the amount of maiming and shit that was going on back then too, you know.
Well, the thing is, we just didn't fight the British like in open terms, like out on the battlefield. because they would kick our ass, and
Right.
that's essentially why we won.
Oh yeah,
They
for
just
sure.
let us win, basically.
Yeah. Well, they just wouldn't.
let us win at the end.
They wouldn't adapt. They wouldn't adapt
Yeah,
to.
and the French. The French started kicking their ass because they're still pissed about the French and Indian War, and they're like, "Fuck these guys! Yeah, we'll help you beat them."
It literally is the reason why, like, we still have such that strong affinity, you know, where we'll go die on their beaches for them. Is stretches back to that.
Yeah, literally saved the war. You know, if they didn't show up and blockade, you know, well, not even that, but the fleet turned up and they literally were like,
against, what was it, Cornwallis?
They trapped him in the harbor there, right? Like we had him pinned in their fort, and if the French didn't show up to blockade them, they would have been able to escape through their port. And they essentially, and they were late too, right? It was like they were almost about to be able to escape, and then the last minute the French showed up. And boom.
Like if that didn't happen, most likely what would have happened was they just would have let us do whatever, and then the War of 1812 might have been completely different because we might not have had that French ally, and they just come back over, wipe the floor with us.
Yeah, that is interesting too, because we never had they never tried to come back and retake anything. You know,
they're too broke,
them.
man.
Yeah,
that's why the Revolutionary War played the way it did. They were broke from the French and Indian War, and that's where the whole taxation without representation started. Like they started taxing the shit out of the American colonies to pay for the French and Indian War. So
you want to ask Rob? You want to ask Rob the death question, Toll?
Oh, Rob, how many people do you think were killed in the Revolutionary War?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. If I had to guess, like probably sub 100,000, sub 150, sub maybe.
You win.
What was
got
it?
me about 50K.
It's 6,800.
60. Damn, I got the. What was that? That was like a Price is Right win right there.
Yeah, I guess 150.
Casualty, please.
Right.
Mike guessed $1 million.
Bob. $1 million? Come on, Mike. I mean, no way. Number
I had
60,000, but I was like, I'm probably wrong. I got to double this, and I was way off.
That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. I was gonna say like 50K or something like that. Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna add a 1 to that.
Does that include civilian casualties, or is that only uniformed troops that we count? Was that like the army?
I believe that is American.
Oh, okay. Damn.
And then, but the thing is, like, about 20,000 died of disease as well.
Yeah, so that's fair. I mean, attrition is important, right? So you got to count them, or do you not count? Or it's just direct combat threats. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, only 6,800, and we were down. We were fighting. Mm-hmm. we were fighting tooth and nail. Shit.
Yeah. We were just talking about the Swamp Fox, Francis Marion, the guy from the guy that Mel Gibson's based off of in The Patriot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, even George Washington, man, and the Hessians. The old George Washington Christmas tale.
Yeah. In America, we kill you in your sleep on Christmas.
That's right. That's right. I mean, yeah, it was
across a frozen river to just kill you in your sleep.
Brutal dudes, man. They weren't messing around. They knew it was at stake. But once again, I think it's interesting, the government part, right? The most important documents ever written in history: Declaration of Independence, and then the Constitution. How do you govern people that like don't want a Declaration of Independence or a Constitution, dude? What do?
I don't know.
Question for the listeners.
Yeah. Question for the next generation, because we clearly fucked it up.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't us. It was the guy prior to us. They fucked it
up.
That's
right. Yeah.
I was only 18. I get to do that. I didn't know what to do.
Right.
Boomers.
Who's excited for the Top Gun 2, huh? Oh, we're talking about movies, Patriot.
When's this supposed to be coming out?
It got suspended. It's supposed to come out this summer, or 4 months ago or so, and they got pushed. I don't know when though. I'm sitting here watching the trailer. It just looks so sick. I grew up on Top Gun. Huge Top Gun kid.
I grew up making fun of that movie the entire time I was in the Navy. and we would just watch it and just literally rip on it the entire time because how bad it was. Like,
lame.
Mike doesn't know how to have fun, dude.
Yeah,
not at all, bro. Not at all, dude.
Lost his sense of humor, dude.
July 2nd, 2021.
Top Gun's a great movie.
Nice. July 22nd, supposedly.
Yeah.
Maybe theaters will still be a thing then.
Yeah.
Which platform is it gonna launch on?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know how I don't know how theaters are holding on.
Well, I thought they weren't. I thought that who was it? There was one theater company that was closing like almost all of their locations.
Regal? Century?
Regal. I think it's Regal. Closing all their locations.
Damn. We have a fat one up here. Like you guys, I'll maybe send you a picture, but it's like super, like everything's like built around it. It's like this kingdom where you like drive on this road. There's shops on the side. Then there's like a moat you go over. This long straight road in like a shopping center, and then it's this huge Regal. Really nice building.
Sounds like it's gonna be a beautiful new 9-hole golf course, baby.
Or like a
the next mini mall or some strip mall or something.
Bumper cars.
Yeah. I saw Illinois coming up with bumper cars instead of ice skating. Like bumper cars on the ice rinks type of thing for this winter, yeah. Instead of having their outdoor ice rinks they do in the winter, like they do them here in St. Louis and in Illinois. What is ice skating? But this year they're gonna do bumper cars too, on there.
That's crazy.
I don't really see how that's fun. I mean, how do you?
I don't know.
How do you generate any momentum?
Right. I don't know. It's like I saw it and was like, mainly bumper cars. You're connected to a wire above the ring or above the little thing that moves you around. So I'm not really sure why you're doing this, but maybe you just got leftover carnival bumper cars that you need to like try to use or something. I don't know.
And if you do generate momentum, what do you do then? Like you're never gonna stop. Not enough friction. You go just slam into something else or someone else.
That's what I don't get about it. I'm like, wait, how does this work? Whatever. I don't know. Illinois is doing some weird stuff. New York's doing some weird stuff. California's doing some weird stuff. We're all going through it.
Yeah.
Coast to coast. St. Louis seems like they're not doing too much weird stuff.
No, St. Louis County is, but everywhere around is good. So.
Did you see the Denver mayor? He's like, an apology.
Oh my god.
Please forgive me. Groveling to his constituency because they caught him going out after he told everyone not to.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I didn't see that.
I'm just waiting for 2021, and we don't have to worry about COVID anymore or any issues. You know, we just restart the whole year. So,
dude, that reminds me. AstraZeneca is done. They're donezo.
Yeah.
They will not be making a competing vaccine for Americans.
Yeah, they're out.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Not for a while. Yeah, they fucked up their dosage.
Dude, they found their dosage by accident. How crazy is that? So they were like, picture like, you know, a 2-dose, you know, regimen, right? They were giving people, it was supposed to be 2 doses that they were supposed to give people, but they were giving people only 1 dose and then found out like, oh shit, this actually works better than the 2, but they did it by accident. They did it completely by accident. They didn't mean to give people the 1 dose. And I don't know. I looked at some of their data. Their data looked a little specious as well.
Yeah, that really hurts the like in these the vaccines, like the whole like, oh well, the whole capitalism, like, oh well, do you trust a company to make a reliable product because essentially they're putting their reputation on the line and they got to foot the bill and things like that. And then when you read this, like where they discover their doses on accident and they're going to have to redo their entire global or international human trial again, it's like, well, that doesn't look good for me or for capitalism, I guess.
Well, that's the thing is like, I mean, number one, it's a rush job. So I give them, you know, some benefit of the doubt. And number 2, it's because of our current system that we have that kind of transparency, that they couldn't hide it, that it had to come out, you know? And I don't think that I personally, and although I've never been involved in this process, I've read a little bit about it. So I like to think maybe I loosely understand it. I don't think that that's due to the FDA's existence. I think that's due to science and its rigor. right? Like people, you have to publish this to the scientific community. And the scientific community is what kind of gives you this feedback via all different types of organizations outside the FDA. So, you know, I mean, even like the National Health Services for the U.S., like, you know what I mean? It's not like that data doesn't go through them too. If you didn't have an FDA, right? Like they're going to have a say in this. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I think it sucks for them. It's a bummer, but hey, at least it was transparent, and now they're out of the race, and we're not gonna potentially get a bad, harmful vaccine.
I mean, would you think the government could do a better job? Just into the DMV?
No, I was making the opposite case. I was making the case.
No, I wasn't throwing that at you.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, like when it comes to stuff like the FDA, I'm not exactly sure what would happen if you got rid of the FDA. I think people are, they catastrophize about it, and they're like, "Oh God, it would be the end of the world." I'm not so sure about that, but
yeah. But I mean, the reason why the FDA was created was because there were more nefarious practices in like capitalism, and like these companies weren't regulated, and some horrible shit was going on, and that's why it was instituted. But I mean, this was back in the day when you had dentists and physicians at like house parties that were smashing their heads against walls and like huffing, ether and being like, "Oh my God, I can't even feel my face when it's cut open." So,
right. I think the with the vaccine and capitalism part makes it so, like Rob said, it kind of keeps them in check, like, because you're liable, if it was a government thing, how liable is the government really? Unless they're just they're not worried about being sued because they're government entities and everybody in there has no investment into it, But if it's a company, right, like Pfizer or something, they want to make sure that they're not going to be getting sued for the next 40 years from giving out this vaccine to everybody, Like, even the board members or the individuals, like, they're not trying to get sued for the next 40 years if people develop complications forever. I know there's a law or there's like a policy with suing vaccine companies after the polio vaccine fiasco, but there's still the fact that they can be sued if they do fuck up, and I think that is also a part of kind of keep them honest more than like probably the FDA or maybe any other regulation services. It's like just the fact that you're gonna lose money and they're a company that makes money,
Well, the government does obviously awful things. I mean, the government is the ones who have experimented on human beings. You know what I mean? Like even Mike, right where you're from in sorry to put you on blast, but I mean, St. Louis is a big place, but in St. Louis, man, I mean, they did radioactivity experiments on the human population unwittingly in the Cold War, with zinc cadmium or zinc cadmium sulfide, I think it was, right? But yeah, anyway, radioactive,
They did a bunch of stuff here during because we're in the middle, dude. Yeah, we had a bunch of weird shit go on. I never realized it until I got older, because St. Louis is in the middle of the country and it's such a big place that there is a lot. Yeah, the St. Louis International Airport is a huge hub outside of O'Hare, and
the Mississippi River.
There's a lot of shady shit that happened in the military, and there's a lot of historical shit, especially with people moving west, that you don't really realize unless you look into it, there's a lot of history that comes out of because the Mississippi River was the frontier, it was the big connection to the west.
That's where Lewis and Clark based out of before they did their expansion west to find to mark or document the trail west.
Yeah,
they're stationed in Fort St. Louis.
Yeah, we have a bunch of Lewis and Clark trails you can go on and follow around and historical sites about it. There's a museum in my school that's got it's got some mask of some famous historical figure. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's only 2 in the world, and we have one of them here in St. Louis because of where we're at.
You know what St. Louis also has? Do you know about this, Mike? Do you know about the fucking landfill that's on fire there?
Oh, the
perpetually for thousands of years.
Or I thought you were talking about the nuclear waste landfill that were literally built into a fucking big ass pile that people climb and is a tourist attraction now. That's literally a big cement dome over the waste from the Manhattan Project or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, bro, I've read about that a bunch, and it's so funny because people think it's like a tourist attraction, and they'll like climb up it and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those of you guys that don't know, landfills, they like the way they're constructed, they burn sometimes. They spontaneously combust because of the amount of methane is released from them. And St. Louis has this giant landfill that is just it's burning and it's on fire. But the problem with this landfill is they dumped all of the nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project in it. So you have this landfill that is just burning towards like this nuclear reactive dump, and they have no idea what's going to happen once it hits it. It's just chilling. They just cemented the shit out of it and put a bunch of dirt over it and like some rubber like pond cover, like bottom covering, and that's it.
But you can literally look it up, and it looks like a tourist attraction. They got signs on it and like stairs. You can climb up it. People use it to work out. Climb stairs and shit. It's weird. It's so weird.
That is I didn't know anything about that. I mean, what do you do? Like, they know exactly what happens when those two things meet: fire, stuff. Like, it's not good. It goes into the air, and everybody gets a chance.
Dude, there's a documentary about it. It's called Atomic Wasteland, and it documents these neighborhoods that are around this landfill, and you can hear the people, the residents, like complaining. They're like, just like all of a sudden in the middle of the day, like there's be a horrible smell that comes through the town, and it's just like, get the fuck out of there right now,
dude. There was
leave.
I took a class. I think it was like my sophomore year in college. It was like I forgot what class it was, but it was talking about how where all these like nuclear waste and like pig farms and stuff are always in low income areas. So like that increases like cancer and health effects in these low income areas, because where are they dumping the nuclear waste? Where are all these like super big like pig and shit farms and stuff at? Low income areas. So there's like, I don't know if it's the same documentary you're talking about, Drew, but it kind of sounds similar, where it was like they were just targeting these low income areas to have all these farms and nuclear waste sites, essentially.
That sounds interesting. No, I mean, yeah, it's similar. This Atomic Wasteland, it's literally just about the St. Louis landfill and how it's fucking up these neighborhoods.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, this is similar, but it goes into nuclear waste and like farming and like pig farms and stuff, where it's just shit everywhere, and it affects the local community around them because it affects their water supply and stuff. So it goes into like this, but it targets where they're located and how they end up getting the approvals to be like set up in there, type of thing. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was super interesting when I was looking at it. But
yeah, definitely sucks to be poor. It's not good.
No.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But yeah,
trust a man with a pig farm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who would want to live next to a pig farm. I've been to a couple in there.
Well, I was always wondering, is like, who was there first? Was the pig farm there, and then you moved in, or did you move in and the pig farm moved in next? Because that is also something they never covered. But it was obviously conveniently ignored in the classroom discussion of who was there first. Did you move in there after it was there, or did it move in there and set up their 20 acres of land after you moved in there? Because I kind of see it more as you probably moved in there because it was cheap land, because it was next to a pig farm. So you should kind of, not be surprised a little bit. Maybe, I don't know.
It also could be a function of the fact that it's industry, and people that take those jobs will live, generally closer. You know what I mean? Like if you work in factories, you're going to live near a factory, right?
Right. Which this documentary never said. It said that these were all just people who had no connection to this farm. They were just byproducts of it.
I've never taken economics.
It was just a bad overview. Like I was like watching it in this class and just going like, there are so many gaps and holes in this, but it was just focused on this one aspect of just being another reason why college sucks. It was just like, okay, we're just gonna focus on this one thing that's convenient for you guys. Like, I'm not gonna talk about all this other shit that could be possible factors. That if you look at it from
Why didn't you field it? You didn't field it?
No, because they were targeted questions. They were like, watch this. It was because it was clip-its. Like the professor pulled out like small clip-its of the documentary to show us, but I went back and looked at more. Yeah. It was more of like this clip fits my lecture that I'm showing you guys, and then I went back and looked at it a little bit more, and it was just a bunch of the same stuff where they weren't really like.
That's my favorite thing they do. It's like I come to class and I'm like, oh yeah, here's a check for $72,000, and they're like, thank you very much. Here's an Atlantic article. Go home and read that. Like, what the hell is this? I'm not being educated. I'll just go pay the Atlantic then if that's what I'm supposed to read. Like,
right, and a lot cheaper, dude. $10 a month probably, not $70,000 a fucking year.
Hey,
I wouldn't pay $10 a month to read the Atlantic. It's fucking awful.
What if it gave you a degree paper from Columbia that said you graduated Columbia for having a subscription to Atlantic for 4 years?
That's basically what they're doing.
Right.
If they did it for $10, I mean, that's a steal for sure. It'd be $10, 10 less than 250,000. Agree. I'll take that anytime.
The Atlantic. At least it's not Snopes.
Definitely.
That should be their tagline.
Yeah, I mean, dude. Oh my gosh, the stuff I see out of there, it's all it's the same type of people, that studied some kind of crazy, weird postmodern style degree path at whatever university. And then they write the craziest articles ever. I can't remember the last one that I read, but I try to delete them from my memory. Like, I don't have capacity to think about it.
You don't got the bandwidth to hold any more storage for that type of nonsense.
No, it's the worst, man. It's definitely one of the worst rags out there, in my opinion. But I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I don't like when they do that. I think that that's the worst. But then if you tried to do education, like, this is just my opinion here. I'm not saying that everybody believes this, but if you try to do education the more classical way and you sent somebody home with a book, right? Like, so let's say we're trying to learn about like nuclear waste disposal and how it maybe has some type of correlation to particular populations in the United States. And they sent you home with a book on that. Most kids are going to be like, dude, I don't want to read this whole fucking book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like a strenuous style of education that you get at particular institutions. And unfortunately, some professors don't adhere to that kind of stuff. I think that's the right way to do it. Dude, you got to read a lot of shit to get smart. You can't just watch clips of a documentary and then build expertise. Like, if that were the case, then everybody who watches fucking YouTube would be a Nobel laureate. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get expertise from clips. So that sucks.
Right. You can't have it all distilled into one simple 5-10 minute clip or like 2-3 pages or 2 or 3 page paper on like the subject.
Don't get me started on it.
Yeah. It's like the whole like it's almost like just a version of the like social media problem where it's like, clickbait, you watch a little fucking 5-minute video on something, and next thing you know, you think you have an opinion on the whole topic. It's almost just now it's bringing that into the school setting where here's a 3-minute clip and then we're going to talk about this for an hour in lecture, about this or that, where it's like, well, what was the rest of it about? You like that? I threw that in there for old Joski, who's not here today.
No, yeah, I agree though. I think that like a lot of it too is that like at least a lot of the kids that I've seen, and including myself, because I'm using myself as kind of a benchmark here, having never been exposed to any of this stuff, right? Like, if you want to talk about like ethics, right? Like maybe you should start way back in history when people first started talking about ethics, and maybe you got to read like a little bit of Aristotle, right? Maybe you got to read a little bit of Plato. But like most kids nowadays, like with the way school is, it's it's everything is so fast. The attention span is so short. You're not going to get a kid to do Plato and then Aristotelian ethics and then on and on and on until you can get to the college classroom and talk about things in a really deep and interesting way. Unfortunately, you get stuck with the sound bites because that's what sticks. That's what that's what people want. It's what the crowd wants, you know. And it's technically, as a student at a school, you're the customer, right? Customer's always right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's like one of the,
Go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that's like one of the things that like blew my mind about. I've been slowly like trying to read or go over Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics, and he talks about literally just the way that a river flows through like a city or like a continent, like can determine the economic prosperity of that region or area. And like that's something I like literally never even thought of. And he talks about like the difference between the river systems, and I think it's like Kenya, at least like the jungles of Africa compared to like the Mississippi, and like how the Mississippi is like gradient, like it's so slow and you can maneuver a ship down it, whereas like the rivers in Africa, they are so turbulent that you can't, and completely like wreaks havoc on trying to have economic resource via water there.
Yeah, this is like
crazy.
This is also like if you bring this up in academic circles, you could potentially get kicked in the nuts for it. It's one of these like taboo subjects because it's Hegel, right? Like it's a Hegelian argument that your geography can be a big predictor in your success. And so what they say is that that's very racist, and you can't say things like that. You can't have those kind of conversations. I mean, and Hegel was obviously a very racist person, and was very, adamant about it in his writing, even though he was a, brilliant thinker. All these guys have their faults, but yeah, it's been problematized in academia, but it's an important point. And typically people that are close to the equators, close to the equatorial regions, close to the equator, they underperform people that are further away from it, which is really weird. It's very interesting kind of take. And yeah, Soul is obviously going to drill down on that because it does make sense, right? I mean, if you live in Siberia, you're going to have really hard production chains. You have really hard, it's going to be very difficult for you to trade with people and create markets, which, Soul, being an economist, is probably a big fan of markets. So it makes sense, man. But yeah, it's a great book to read.
Dude, it's crazy that can get you kicked in the dick for just bringing up geographic differences.
I guess it depends on where, right?
It makes sense a little bit because it's like, well, now you're saying that I don't have the same success rate. Like, so why isn't Africa just as successful as Europe and North America and Canada? Is it because they're less intelligent, or is it because they're where they're at or something? Like if you start saying that you can't be as successful as somebody else due to something, then you're blacklisted, right? Everybody's got the same chance at the same golden fruit as everybody else, no matter where they're born or what their heritage is,
Yeah, I think I think the conversation also happens independent of data a lot, and so it becomes harder to talk about. But
well, no one cares about data because they care about feelings, like data obviously is the way to go, but in a world we live in, I feel like a lot more people worried about social pariahs or how they feel versus the straight up fact or reality that the world we live in. No one wants to deal with that. They'll just be mad about it and just be like, no, you can do it, bro, or that's you can't say that because then you're just putting them down, you're putting the man down or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, economists have this. I love economics, so I'm partial, but like economists have this pesky way of always finding really interesting ways of proving points, and it's that's why I like it, is because it's super witty. And for instance, like one of my favorite studies, I was actually talking to Ryan about this the other day, is a study where a couple of economists wanted to try to judge outcomes, right? They wanted to see like what are great predictors of success, right, for people. Like is it socioeconomic? Is it status driven? Whatever. Like they wanted to explore everything and try to figure out like what are some really big predictors in your early life that will show that you're going to be successful. And one of the greatest things that they found was the number of books that you're in the home that you're raised in. And I just think that that's so great, right? Like who would have ever boiled it down to that, right? And empirically, these people they proved it that the number of books in your home is strictly correlated to your level of success. and success being like achieving higher education, always working. We know what social behavior is versus antisocial, right? So it's like it's a generalization, right? Success, and I'm not trying to get carried away here. If you have 10 more books than the next guy, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a millionaire, but you're probably less likely to go to jail, or you're probably less likely to end up on drugs, things like that. That like antisocial, life ruining behavior. So I think it's really interesting stuff, man. I think all that stuff should be explored. It's great.
Yeah, doesn't Soul talk about that a little bit? Like, literal just access to a library card changes like your economic outcome, or predicts like a higher economic outcome or social mobility than somebody who doesn't have access to a library card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean all that stuff like proximities too. Like Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors ever, used to have to take the train to the public library. Imagine if he was deterred by proximity. You know what I'm saying? And didn't take that train to go to the public library to get books on investing. We would have lost one of the greatest thinkers in the investment universe just because of proximity. So, and we may have, that could have happened. Could have happened several times over. So, um,
Right.
it also like people tie these things to language too, right? Like the English language is very useful for learning certain concepts and certain ideas, whereas other languages can be better for learning more abstract ideas. And I think that bears out in a lot of the evidence as well. So that I've seen. So it comes down to so many different factors. What if you're bilingual or trilingual? Like that kind of code switching, right? Like that your ability to solve problems at multiple levels just by virtue of the fact of trying to think your way through talking. It has to be useful, right? And so it's also been well studied. So there's some good stuff out there, and I think they make for much more interesting papers than like here's a bunch of numbers and here's a bunch of charts and graphs and like that
Right. Yeah.
it's like you posit like this really interesting take on a problem, you know what I mean, and try to isolate a variable. I think it's fun.
For sure. Yeah, being trilingual, useful to everyone except Michael Malice, right? Am I right?
I don't understand. I couldn't believe that guy's whole like weird take on like being an anarchist. Isn't that like a weird thing? I don't know.
Dude, it's I like there's a few anarcho-capitalists is what they're called, anarchists, like
Yeah.
capitalists that I know of. They're all intelligent, but like their takes on like how like I can't get behind anything. Like I'm just explain to me how your world works. Like how does anything work? And it's just like, and basically what they describe is just capitalism. And it's just like, well, okay, we have that. So what's the issue? But
That's what I
I
didn't
don't know.
understand about it. It's like literally what he's saying is like, hey, capitalism has some bad stuff in it, right? Like we know that capitalism can go off the rails, with wealth consolidation, or capitalism can go off the rails with like corruption, right? And you can get crony capitalism. You can get people colluding and trying to develop monopolies and doing all this legal shenanigans to prevent themselves from being recognized as such. Like we've seen it, right? But it pales in comparison into like what he's talking about. He's like, anarchy? Like really? You advocate for lawlessness
Yeah.
in the land? Like I don't know. He equated it to some kind of like thing with freedom. Like you would be more free.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, more free to like kill each other or take each other's shit. There would be no rule of law. It would be really difficult to establish the value of stuff, right? Like your job would probably no longer exist. I don't know. It seems really, I don't know. It was a super weird flex.
It's weird to me because it's like the exact opposite of like socialism or communism, which is what Michael Mouse grew up in. And essentially is the same problem with socialism, and why it will never work is the same reason why anarchy will never work. Like because people are so selfish and looking out for their own interests, like anarchy can never work because it's completely unregulated, so it's just a chaotic mess. Where socialism will never work because you can't force everybody to act altruistically for their own the own beneficial good.
No, yeah.
Like it's two sides of the same coin.
No, you're 100% right. I think that's the main argument on why, ideas like that, such as like for capitalism, like why capitalism gets so much support is just simply because it structures, it incentivizes your own human nature. You know what I mean? I think it's a good way to say it. It essentially says that we know you're going to be selfish, but we can allow you to apply your talents in a positive direction. You know what I mean? Like you're going to look out for your own interests. You're going to look out for your progeny's interests. Like, let's get you on the path to success, as opposed to like, while you're looking out for your own interests, why don't you write a letter to your local commissar on your neighbor? You know, like don't look out for your self-interest that way. That's not the type of self-interest we want, right? Like we want you to go start a business so that the government could shut it down because of a flu.
Right.
Because of a flu.
Just kidding. It's more serious.
Dude, not to change topics or anything. I know we talked last week about Floyd Mayweather going to go beat up Logan Paul, but did you guys see that Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson are getting back into the ring?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they're going to fight each other. They're like 50 years old.
Did
you see them stare each other down?
Yeah, they like weighed in.
Yeah.
I think they weighed in today. But yeah, Mike Tyson is 10 pounds heavier. 53, looking shredded.
It looks like a keg with limbs.
Yeah. Fucking Roy Jones Jr.'s all dad botted up, but still in shape. But
I've seen him working on that thing that Rob sent us, that workout machine. Mike Tyson's been putting in the work on that thing, dude. He's been getting his punches in on that. I saw multiple videos of him going to town with that machine, dude. So
yeah. Okay, so the crazy thing about this fight is it's a pay-per-view. They're charging $50 a pop, and it's not even a real fight. It's an exhibition. It's actually called, they're just calling it hard sparring. Neither competitor is allowed to go for a knockout. If there is
I heard that was fake.
If there is a cut, they will stop the fight immediately. And it's going to be 6 or 8 2-minute rounds instead of 3-minute rounds. So
sounds like a money grab almost. Like, hey, watch us fight as legends, you know?
It's definitely a money grab, but would any of you guys pay $50 to watch two 50-year-olds fucking get winded in the second round and then
Nope.
Well, I don't pay for pay-per-views, period, so I guess I'm not a good person to ask.
I'll catch it the next day on YouTube.
I'll watch the highlights, you know?
Yeah.
On like a sports website, you know what I mean? In writing.
Right.
Drew, are those confirmed rules? Because I saw a bunch of bickering in the comment section saying that was fake and shit.
No, that's real.
Okay.
So like this is all being done in California. Of
course,
and,
California. That's
and California has the strictest and the best run athletic commission in the 50 states. And the guy that runs it, like the guy that runs the commission, he's like he doesn't mess around. It's so like he's gonna force compliance. So like if one of these two dudes actually tries to knock each other out, like he might just call the fight whenever.
What are they supposed to do when they punch each other? Like, I mean, when you get punched in the face, it's like all rules are off the table. Like Mike Tyson's fucking ripping that air off with either with his glove or his fucking mouth.
Like, the thing that I don't understand too is that like why would I want to watch Mike Tyson fight someone to not watch him knock him out? That's the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
That's why he exists. It's not like he was. It's not like
right.
kind of graceful. No, he like came out.
Dude, Mike Tyson's gonna crush him in the head.
Trying to rip your face off. Like, I don't get it. It just sounds.
Yeah, I don't either.
Trying to make sure nobody dies in the ring, and a money
super
grab.
Bitch
like,
made.
Super hyped. Boring.
Right. Well, I don't understand that. Like, they're two 50-year-olds. They obviously want to compete or fight against each other. Like, why isn't there just an old like? Dude, these guys have autonomy. They know the risks they're going to take. Like, why can't we just let 50-year-olds just get in the ring and fight each other? Right? I don't get it. Like,
California.
Money grab, dude. It's got to be money grab, you know? Why not just do an expedition style, fucking throw it out there, you know?
Yeah.
But we got like 2 minutes left before we wrap it up. You guys got any other closing remarks or anything besides that? Who do you think is going to win, Drew, on that fight?
So like if Mike Tyson doesn't get a knockout in like 2 rounds, I think it's gonna be Roy Jones.
If he doesn't accidentally knock him out, you know?
All day.
Dude, I'm calling left hook to the liver, dude. Calling.
An accidental, bro. It might just be an accidental. Might just be an accidental knockout, bro. They're just too old, dude. One of them just gets a little bit too hard while they're sparring, and Next thing you
can
know,
imagine if he turns
boom.
into the Dada
Dude dies.
5000 and Kimbo Slice fight where they
Dies or something.
where Kimbo Slice and Dada 5000 fought, and Dada literally had a heart attack and died in the ring and then came back to life as Kimbo was beating him up.
Dude, that happened to my neighbor. Not to like name drop the UFC fighter, but he right when like UFC started way back in the day, this dude I went to school with lived across the street from his dad fought, and they pronounced him dead in the octagon, and came back to life. Yeah.
The old Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
What happened? He just had a heart attack or something?
I don't remember exactly. The kid that I went to school with, I like was not exactly the friendliest. He actually got like expelled from like the previous school he was at, and yeah, he wasn't really like the nicest dude in the block. We kind of had like a little beef. So I forget the details. I can ask my buddy. I have a buddy who his best friend fought in the UFC for a short sprint.
Oh
and
damn!
Trained with them as well. Trained with it's like father son. What do they call it? What are like the fighting groups? What's the correct word for that? Like
Dojo?
Like entourage? I don't know.
Oh.
Like teams. I guess it's really just a team, right?
Yeah, teams, corners.
They fought with their team or whatever, trained with them.
Team Quest
dude died,
back in the day.
And it came back.
Dude died. That's crazy. Yeah, one of my favorite UFC fighters name's Matt Brown. His nickname is Immortal Matt Brown because he died and came back to life.
Jesus.
But he died due to a heroin overdose. Not in the ring.
That'll do it. Yeah. Alrighty, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will try to find Joe for next week. And we will catch you guys later. Thank you for hanging out.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us, Poon. We appreciate it.
Bye,
we'll talk to you guys later.
Get on those socials, download, and leave a comment for us in our Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast. Blah, blah, blah.
Thank you for listening to
subscribe.
We
Five
hope
stars.
you guys enjoyed the show.
That's right.
Make sure to
Later,
like,
fools.
subscribe, and follow us on our social media. You can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are uploaded, which include our pre and post show. We will be live next week at 7 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to tell us how wrong we were in the comments. See you next time.